This is Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow with Expansions.com cooking channel. As you know, I like to cook and I like to present lots of interesting and unique things that I do that might interest you to kind of expand your mind, expand your horizons, and grow, hopefully mentally and not physically in your body, so to speak. So today I have soaking in my tub some green tomatoes. Now, interesting point that was just brought up. With all the interest in heirloom tomatoes, there is a variety that is green when it's ripe and it's delicious. I don't know the name of it. It might be the zebra tomato, but I'm not positive about that. We'll have to ask Cindy next time we're out there. This really is truly an unripe tomato, and you can only get these a few times a year, usually in the beginning of the season and also at the end of the season. So I like to get them when I can, and if you have a grower, as I do, I ask her to please pick some green for me so that I can use them in some dishes that I like. So after it's soaked, what I do is I take it and I cut out the stem, and it's hard and crunchy, you can kind of hear it. You want it as green as possible. You don't want it to have red stripes because that means it's starting to ripen and it can be a little bit mealy. And you want to just slice it very, very thin. If you have a mandolin, you might want to use that. I don't, and I'm a good slicer, so I slice mine very, very thin. But you can do it even about half as thin as that with a mandolin, and that's also very, very good. Start by slicing out the tomato, and once it's sliced, I'm going to show you over here what I already did so you can see what you need to do next is put down a layer of paper towels, and as you can see I have my tomatoes in here because it's taking off the juices. Green tomatoes, when you bake it, as we're going to do, have a tendency to get very watery, so we want to take that off, and I've already this is my second pressing. You might even do it 3 or 4 depending on how much time you have. But the paper towel will wind up wet with the juices, and that of course you're just going to throw away. But this will make the pie, when you bake it, not quite so watery. So these have been adequately dewatered. And we're going to do a layering of green tomatoes, garlic, and onion. Along with, I like to throw in a little tiny bit of marinara sauce for flavoring. Now you can also add meat if you like and have a whole meal deal, or you can do as I'm going to do and just have it as a side dish. So I'm going to chop up some, and as you can see I use a lot of garlic. You can use 1 clove, 2 cloves, you can use garlic powder if you don't want to use the real thing. Down here so it doesn't make so much noise. And remember, if you soak the garlic first in your hydrogen peroxide bath, it's going to be easier to peel. And a lot of times I will peel several bulbs at a time and just put in a batch of the cloves in my refrigerator and pull it out and chop it as I need it. Okay, once you have your garlic, chopped, coarsely chopped, then I just again slice my onion. Again, you can do it with a mandolin, or, because I have lots of years of experience, I do it pretty thinly. Okay, I'm going to put just a little bit of this in the bottom just for flavor. Put too much again, it's going to make your pie a little watery, but I like to flavor it, and you don't have to use it that way. Then we just start layering tomatoes in. We use it as a vegetable, and I prefer it as a side dish, but as I mentioned earlier, you can layer meat in. You can put in ground turkey, ground chicken, ground buffalo, ground beef, sausage, you know, anything that you would like. And put a little onion in. Now, again, you can put the onion in as thick as you want or as thin as you want. I kind of spread it out a little bit. And alternate with a little bit of the coarsely chopped garlic. I mentioned we like quite a bit. And I have previously grated some goat mozzarella. Put that in. You can also, again, you can vary the type of cheese. You can mix your cheeses. And whatever you've got on hand. Don't go out and buy special ingredients. The main thing you really need is your green tomatoes. And once you have that, whatever's in your refrigerator, you can kind of put in here. I've also put in chopped green peppers, jalapenos, whatever strikes my fancy. This is just kind of a plain basic one. But whatever strikes my fancy at the moment, that's what I do. I really don't go by too many rules and regulations. I'll get into the next layer. And I usually do 2 to 3 layers depending upon what ingredients I have. If I don't have a lot of tomatoes, sometimes I don't because it's the end of the season. Or maybe, that's the end of my batch of what I purchased previously. A little bit more of the sauce on here for flavoring. A little salt and pepper if you want. You can put a little bit of basil, a little oregano. If you don't want to have the tomato flavor in there. And then we start over with the onions. A little of the garlic. A little more of the cheese. You can also put fresh goat cheese in here. You can put cream cheese in here. Like I said, use your imagination. Have fun with it. It really makes a nice addition to any meal. Something different and unique. As I mentioned, you usually can only get them a couple times a year. Beginning of the season and end of the season. Unless you have a grower and you can ask them. And then I'm going to put on one last layer of tomatoes. A little bit of cheese, and I've got some pecorino romano, which I showed you a few weeks ago how to grate in your Cuisinart, and I'm going to add that on the top because that gives it a nice brown color when it's done. Okay, so I told you about the pecorino romano, which is sheep's milk cheese, which is really nice. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that on the top. Now this is going to bake down, obviously. I put it in my oven at, depending on how much of a hurry I am to eat, anywhere from 350 to about 425. And you want to, again, how do you like your tomatoes? Like them a little bit crunchy, like them real soft. It depends on what you like, but I would say bake it anywhere from a minimum of 30 minutes. It could take an hour, depending on the temperature and how soft you like it. So, give yourself some time the first time you do it. And sometimes it's better the second day after it sits and gets a little softer and you stick it in and you rebake it. So there you have it, green tomato pie. Stick it in your oven. It's wonderful. The other thing I want to show you how to do with green tomatoes, which you probably also heard of, is fried green tomatoes. And fried green tomatoes are also wonderful and very easy, and again, a real interesting addition to any meal. So what I have here is a non-stick skillet, some olive oil. Put it in here and let it heat up for a second while I show you what I like to do. I take a plate. This is where we will put them when we're done. Set this out of the way. It's going to go in the oven in a minute. Let's see this here. This is Italian breadcrumbs, Jillian's with a G. It is gluten-free, wheat-free, gluten-free, and I like this particular brand because there are only 14 carbs per quarter of a cup. Now, a quarter of a cup might not sound like a lot for crumbs, but basically, this is a quarter of a cup, and it goes a long way, as you will find out. I use these crumbs for a variety of things, which I will demonstrate as we move along in our podcast. This is 1/4 cup, and then what I like to do to stretch them is to add in 1/4 cup of my cheese, which has no carbs. So that right away I've got a 1/2 cup. So you can stretch it, and you can do any of your vegetables this way. These happen to be seasoned with Italian seasoning, but you can also get them plain and add your own seasoning if you prefer. And I take my tomatoes, and all I do is press them in and get a light coating. Now, you can dip them in milk, you can dip them in egg, you can do a variety of things, but because, again, I like to go fast and easy and I don't want a lot of cleanup, this is usually what I do. I do them pretty fast. These are ones that have been between the layers of the paper towel, so they are not going to have a lot of moisture to them. It makes it a little bit more of a challenge to hold the crumbs, but they will hold more of their consistency when you fry them. So as soon as my oil gets hot, we're going to stick a couple in the pan, and I'll show you the difference. These are a couple that are freshly cut. They are going to hold the crumbs a little bit better. You're going to need to put a little bit more on. Now, you can also do zucchini this way and bake it and broil it in the oven. You can do onions this way, eggplant. A lot of people want to dip it in a lot of different layers of things. I really don't. Now, you can see how many crumbs we have left, and we still only have 14 carbs, so you can do quite a bit, and most people aren't going to eat more than 3 or 4 slices of the tomato, so for only 1 or 2 carbs of the breading, it's really, I think, quite reasonable. So let me wash my hands, so we don't want to get water in the oil. And see how my oil is doing over here. Just a little bit hotter there. All right. So these are just going right into the pan. And these are the 2 that we soaked the liquid out of. And these are the 2 that we did not. So I have a little bit more breading on them. As I mentioned, you can do it with any kind of vegetables. You can also do it with chicken. You can do it with seafood such as oysters or fish, which is really good. And if you've got your crumbs out and you have some green tomatoes, go ahead and do some fish or something else so that you don't have to continue to pull out this and pull out that and make more work for yourself. I used to use cornmeal. Cornmeal is gluten-free. However, I found out that you cannot cook out the mold that is in corn. It actually gets into the kernels. So I try to avoid corn these days, but there's one thing that I did really enjoy at one point, and now for health reasons I do not eat that anymore. Okay, now that they've sizzled a little bit, you can see even some of the crumbs are breaking off. This one I've turned so you can see it. It doesn't have quite as much breading. This has a little bit more. It has a nice golden brown. And this again is one. Nice golden brown to it. This is one of the ones we did between the paper towels. Does not have as much crumbs on it. So depending upon what you want, you may want to go for the ones that have not been pressed between the paper towels. You can see how lovely they are. And they're nice and crispy, and they're soft and squishy on the inside, crispy on the outside. They've got the crumbs, they've got the cheese. You can eat them plain with a little salt and pepper. I mean, they're delicious. It's really nice. And it's just something different. We all like a little bit different things in our life. They're not bitter. They have a really nice mild flavor and really nice accompaniment to any meal. Yeah, that's good. The other side is nice and golden brown. Transfer them over here to a plate with some paper towels so it absorbs the extra moisture. Oils. I like mine a little bit on the crunchy side still, so I'm not going to do them too much, but again, see what you like. So there you have it, fried green tomatoes, which is excellent. And the last thing I'm going to tell you about, but I'm actually not going to demonstrate for you, is you can make, believe it or not, a sweet green apple pie. And all you do is you find a recipe for apple pie or apple crisp, and I'll probably be making a fruit crisp for you later on down the way with some gluten-free flour, and I'll talk to you about it again at that point. You just mix a little bit of sugar. I use the coconut sap crystals, and you mix that in with your green tomatoes just like you would apples, and you put it in a pie crust. You add a little bit of cinnamon to that, maybe a tiny bit of salt, a little butter, and you can put another crust on top, or you can put some crumbles, like if you were going to make a fruit crisp on top, just a little flour and butter and a little bit of oatmeal perhaps if you use that, a little bit of cinnamon, sprinkle that on top, bake it and take it out, and you will think that you are eating a real apple pie with much less carbs. So sweet green apple pie. Then you've also, of course, today we made the savory green apples pie. I'm sorry, green tomato pie, the savory green tomato pie, and we have the fried green tomatoes. So you have a variety of things to do, an interesting vegetable. If you have green tomatoes in your garden, go out and get started. I know you want to wait for those red juicy ones, but in the meantime, just give this a try because you'll be glad you did. It's really a great addition. You'll enjoy it. It's fun. It's different. Serve it to your guests. Make it for yourself. If you have extra tomatoes, slice them up, get the moisture out, put it in the refrigerator. They'll keep a few days and you can do it again. Have fun with life. Enjoy your mind. Enjoy your body. Enjoy what's out there for you to utilize just for your own personal internal growth. This is Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow for Expansions.com. Join me again next week for another edition of Cooking with Janet.